all those
fast,
within
yeah.
10 days. You can normally get that done.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can get them done
Yep.
in less than that.
Yeah.
Just depends. But we
Yeah.
have a big catalog of good people that
Yeah.
we refer to our buyers if they need a referral.
Yeah.
And so that's another strategy. The other strategy is understand the seller's needs. So maybe they need to get some cash out of the house. They might be strapped. They need their sales price, but you let them move. You
Later.
close escrow and you let them move. You give them 3 to 5 days to move,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And in the contract, it's laid out really well that they have to get out if there was a problem. I've been doing this years, thousands of transactions. I've only seen 1 or 2 that would ever have
Really?
a problem, but they always move.
Yeah.
They don't have the tenant's rights.
Yeah, I just had one of my clients. They made the offer, and that was how they got the offer.
Right.
Is they let the sellers stay there for another 30 days
Right.
after they close, and they were worried, like what you're saying. They were worried that what if the sellers don't move, but they ended up moving out, and it was okay.
Yeah, it's very, very, very rare that the seller does not move after a close of escrow, and it's set up that you could go into mediation, arbitration, and then they're out. And they get penalized.
Yeah.
It's a big deal if a seller doesn't move.
Yeah.
So that's another way. Here's even another way.
Yeah.
Another way is because you have, in most contracts, liquidated damages, where your initial deposit goes non-refundable after you've done your inspections, you're totally approved for your loan, it's appraised, you waived all of it. So you could, if the seller needed move money, release that directly to them. You might feel like, well, that's a little risky if they don't sell. They don't sign their loan. Well, you have a contract. Again, it's easily enforceable.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, but if you're really competing and you feel, like you could handle that, that's another possibility.
Yeah.
And,
I like
there's different ways to tweak the contract. A lot of times it's just you want to bring a lot of certainty to the transaction as a buyer
to the listing agent and to the seller.
Correct.
Yeah, the listing agent has all the knowledge.
Right.
The listing agent has all the advice for the seller. They're looking out for their seller.
Right.
So you really want to make sure you impress that listing agent as well.
Exactly, and having a good stand-up local lender is super important. Working with a good, knowledgeable buyer's agent is very important because there's a lot of different ways we can massage the deal depending upon the information that I would have.
What do you think about this strategy? This is the one that I was going to tell you about
Is this a secret sauce?
No, it's just a strategy that I use and I've used it before on that one and other properties, but also I talk to my buyers about this. So most of the negotiating happens after you go into contract.
Right.
Most of the time. So
absolutely.
Don't like when you're making the offer, don't try to negotiate it down. Like you can, absolutely.
Right.
But let's say there's multiple offers. Well, you can negotiate the price down, if there's problems.
Right.
You don't know if that roof's bad. You don't know if the heating and air is bad. You don't know if the
how much
septic or pest work or any of all of the inspections.
A myriad of things.
I had a client that went into contract on a multi-unit. It was a fourplex. The seller wasn't giving any seller credits or reducing their price. There was like 2 or 3 other offers. And, they had a strong offer going in, full ask, right? They got their inspections done, and there's some challenges with a few things wrong with the property. Got a $14,000 seller credit.
It happens.
And they were able to get, what they originally wanted was a seller credit to keep their payment down because they wanted to do a temporary buy down, a 2-1 buy down.
Okay.
And so it keeps the payment down, keep the cash flow good. That's originally what they wanted, and they were a little bit bummed out but then they ended up getting it after.
And what happens also, so I'm representing a buyer, bring the buyer in, we do our inspections. and things come up, the buyer is buying the property based upon a cursory visual, expecting that, unless it's blatant and there's a
Correct.
report that they get
Yeah.
before that says there's all these things wrong, you're buying it as like, oh, if the pest works, there's not a big pest problem,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the roof's going to be okay,
Yeah.
or the heating and air actually works,
Yep.
or a number of myriad of things. And
Yeah.
so when you get that report, you go, okay, now I have to take that on.
Yeah.
Or they've done work without permits.
Yeah.
Now I have to decide if I'm going to buy that house without permits of, like, they enclose the patio. We see this all the time.
Yeah.
They didn't get any permits.
Yeah.
Well, the next buyer that comes along when you go to sell that in the future, could be a problem.
Yeah.
But it might be worthwhile for you to accept that. You might just tear it off,
Yeah.
or you might live with it,
Yeah.
to get into the house.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the other thing is this: for a first-time home buyer, one of the things that you have to realize, unless you're renting something that's really wonderful and paying a lot of rent, you want to buy your rental. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Oh,